Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Picture This, the podcast for artists, creatives and anyone who is interested in photography. Today's guest is Holly. She is another equine agricultural photographer who is going to talk to us about how she got into the industry. This episode is really important for those who are interested in getting into the photography, as Holly started off in corporate and moved her work all the way into photography, now starting a business all by herself. We talk about her journey, what she's doing now, and any exciting projects that she has coming forward. If you're interested in any of these videos, make sure you like, comment down below, and follow for more episodes. Let's get into the episode. Hello, Holly. Thank you so much for being on the episode with me.
No problem. Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So why don't you introduce yourself to people who might not know who you are?
Yeah, so my name's Holly Outtridge, and I am based in Essex, sort of on the Hertfordshire-Essex border, and I specialise in equine and do a little bit of dogs, but the official line is equine and brands, small brands, businesses, that sort of thing, really. So yeah, I do dabble a little bit in the agricultural world, but it tends to take me more down the equine family route and, you know, people with horses, really. So yeah, that tends to be what I do. But I do work with outside of sort of equine and animal industry. I work a little bit in the construction industry as well, which we'll get to later because it's a bit of a contrasting thing, but that's where I found myself. So yeah, that's what I do full time, and I've been full time in this job for 2 years now. Can't believe I say that. But yeah, that's me.
So obviously we were speaking earlier about how you moved from a corporate workplace all the way into photography. I think that's really interesting for a lot of people, because I think a lot of people also have that mentality of, you know, wanting to start this brand new creative thing, but obviously scared of, you know, finances. I was speaking a lot to David in the last episode about you know, working as a photographer can be so scary because you don't know next time, you know, your bills are going to come in and you've got to pay bills, and that's unfortunately the reality of it. How did you get into it firstly?
So as I say, I had a corporate job. As I said to you, I had a corporate job for the best part of 10 years. And it was completely unrelated. It was in the construction industry. You'll notice there's a theme here. So in the construction industry, but it wasn't anything creative. Well, initially it started off in marketing, so I did a little bit of that for a few years. But the large sort of bulk of my time in the industry was within human resources, so HR. But my specialism was learning and development. So I looked after the grad scheme and the apprenticeship sort of area of the business, and like the headcount of the trainees, it made up 10% of our workforce at any one time. So it was a fair chunk. So yeah, I loved that job. And that's something I always say to people, is that I never left that job to escape it because I hated it and wanted to do this. Like, I loved that and I love this. But things change, life moves on, and your priorities, you know, adjust. And I think sometimes it just takes you down a bit of a path, and you know, you just have to let things roll, don't you? So yeah, I did that. I was in that industry and with that business for just short of 10 years. And then the opportunity came up for me to leave and take a voluntary redundancy. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done. And I cried a lot about it in the first few weeks, because I was like, am I doing the right thing? In my heart of hearts, I knew I was doing the right thing, because for probably at least 2 years prior to the actual event happening and it all kind of coming to fruition, I had been kind of hoping that, you know, I found myself hoping a lot. Life would be much easier if this just happened. And then, you know, so I don't want to say I manifested it, but, you know, I feel like it probably, you know, kind of one thing led to another. And so yeah, the opportunity came up, and our team had to decrease by 50%, and I was like, you know what, I'll go. So yeah, and it wasn't as easy as that. I did, to say, I cried a lot. I was very emotional about it for a long time, because it's like the sort of business that I worked for, like everybody knew one another. It wasn't just a corporate job. And it was funny actually, because I remembered speaking to Lucy Newson, who you had on a couple of episodes ago, about it. And she was really like sympathetic, but she was like, the thing is, Holly, I can only be so sympathetic because I've never had a corporate job. I've only ever worked for myself, so I don't
Yeah.
love it that much. And we're like, like we were really chuckling about it because like it's right because for some people, if you've only ever worked for yourself or you've only ever worked for other people doing jobs that you're not really that attached to, oh, it'd be a no-brainer. But it was a massive part of my life. I felt like it was, I started at that business when I was 18 and I left there 20, 28, just turning 28. And I was like, oh, I don't know who I am as an adult without this place and these people that have made me who I am today and all the rest of it. It was just such a lovely place to work for the whole. But by the end of it, the business has been sold out to America and everything had changed and my job wasn't my job anymore. And I was like, I could pour all of the things that all of the energy that I have and all the love that I have for something and being this committed to something in something of my own. And then no one's going to stop me in my tracks one day and say, sorry, we don't want to do that anymore because
Yeah,
I'll be in charge.
exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, that was how I kind of talked myself around to what I'm doing now. And yeah, as I say, I've been full time for 2 years and it's not been without its own, learning moments. And I still say to people say to me, how's it going? And I'm like, yeah, good at the moment. Really
Yeah.
good. And I just think it's one of those things. And I say to people that have been self-employed longer than I have, I say to them, like, does this ever change? Do you ever stop being surprised that people want to work with you? Or like, I've got another one. Oh, this is exciting. Okay, like
Yeah.
never wear off. And they're like, no, not no, maybe not. It just kind of changes. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Because then you just, I guess it's like, I don't know, it's in a way, I just kind of feel like you feel honored over and over and over again, which is nice that people choose you. Um, so yeah, I don't know really, or not. Sometimes they don't choose you, and then it's like
Yeah.
free rejection. That's great.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, that's what I've been doing for 2 years now, and loving it most of the time. Sometimes I want to
Yeah.
tear my hair out, but most of the time, I love it. I feel really lucky that this is my job.
Yeah, definitely. I've been there. I mean, I can't. I mean, I've done retail and stuff like that, but I've never worked in like a corporate job like obviously you have and stuff.
Yeah.
I like started when I was 18, went straight from college into a photography apprenticeship. So like all I know is photography.
Yeah.
But I think from that gap, like I had to make that jump from doing photography on the side to then, maybe having a retail job as my main income to then like slowly stop that and go straight into photography is, that jump is massive.
It's quite interesting. And so, like, with a photography apprenticeship, then, so did you work for another self-employed person or a business or a franchise? How did that look? Because I didn't really know that these opportunities exist, to be honest. People are like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. I still feel like I'm nearly 30 and I still, like, what am I going to be when I grow up? No, here I'm
Yeah.
pregnant. Here I am. I think I finally found the thing. So I often wonder, like, what would, probably for a lot of people, like, what would our lives have looked like if we'd have got into the thing with something like an apprenticeship. So I'm, with my background, big fan of like apprenticeships and all of that. You know, back then, what our life could have looked like 10 years on, or I feel old saying that, but you know what I
No,
mean.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So when you took your apprenticeship on, how did that look for you?
Yes, so this will probably show my age, but so I'm like 23 now. But when I started when I was 18 is when COVID hit. So my college kind of we literally when COVID hit was when the pandemic hit and they were like, well, there's no exams. So,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
when the teachers were giving our grades out. So those last couple of weeks were a bit of a buffer. And I actually never wanted to go to university. Like I talk about this a lot. Like university wasn't for me, but I knew I wanted to do photography. And when I went, so my parents kind of convinced me, like, oh, let's just go and, look at some open days just in case. I was like, yeah, whatever. So when I was speaking to the photography lecturers, they were like, well, you're just going to start a business anyway. And at the time, I didn't want to start a business. I wanted to work for someone. So I kind of went, well, university is not for me, whatever. So I thought, I'm going to go traveling. I'm going to do all this work experience within my gap year after college. And then COVID hit, and I never managed to do that.
So it
So
really
I just
changed
thought,
the trajectory of
yeah, it kind of redirected it because I still wanted to do photography within that gap year, but obviously go traveling and do all the, gap year things that you do. But obviously with COVID here, I kind of felt like, right, I'm gonna just try and, do work experience within that gap while I
Mm.
can, because it was when businesses were starting to shut, but it wasn't everything. So I thought, oh, I'll do like some work experience here and there. So I think I was just on Google like every day, just trying to find a job or work experience. I was like calling people, emails. I think it took me like a year to finally just get an apprenticeship. And so I worked for a company. Um, and bless my old manager, she like took me on. I was like, and I look back and I'm like, why did you take me on? Like, I had no experience, no work. And she was just so kind. And she was like, yeah, I'll just take you on. And I did. Um, like I said, there are no apprenticeships. So what my apprenticeship was technically a customer service qualification, because at the time, and I don't even think now that they have a photography degree or qualification as apprenticeship.
Mm.
So I had to do a customer service one. So basically, I'd have to go to college, learn about customer service, which worked because I was in that type of industry that
I
was
was going to
customer
say,
service.
it's a role at the end of the day, isn't it? It's a
Yeah,
luxury
exactly.
role. So yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, essentially, I was working in customer service because you talk to people and stuff. I'm a big believer that you don't have to go to university to get into photography. As someone who's never gone to university, obviously I can't say on the other end, but I know when I was going for my interview for that apprenticeship, I was up against people who had degrees, I was up against people who had higher qualifications than me, and yet I managed to get the job and other people didn't. And even now, I speak to a lot of people who've gone through university and go, well, I'm stuck in the same place I was if I'd just not gone to university at all as well. Um, Anyway, so I did the apprenticeship and then she kept me on. But within that time of doing the apprenticeship, I gained so much experience working in the real world, essentially, like dealing with real life clients that she had coming in the business. I learned how to edit at a super quick speed. I learned how to use my camera. I learned how to pose people. I learned lighting. I learned everything within the industry plus more because you're in that environment that you have to, put on a
Oh,
show
wow.
essentially like you do now. So it was literally, I think I grew so quickly within that year, 2 years that I was there because I had so much experience. And um I've done a lot of freelance as well. And what people ask for within, like, they don't necessarily ask for a degree, they ask for what experience you have, what skills you have, your portfolio. And I think that mentality just made me grow so much within it. So it was for someone who's, maybe gone into a standard job after university, because it is hard. There aren't a lot of photography jobs. Like I literally looked on like Google yesterday and like Indeed for like other jobs, photography jobs, just to see what the market was like. And there's maybe like three, four, and a lot of them are usually down in London, or you have to travel very far for it. I mean, where I live, it's you kind of in the middle of nowhere anyway. But for doing stuff like this, it's usually Manchester or London that you have to travel to for work. And a lot of it isn't photography in the sense of what we do as like taking photos and stuff. It's like content creation or it's taking photos for websites and stuff like that. It's not what we do in that sense. So it's a very different whole ball game. Obviously, if that's what you want to get into, that's great. But I don't necessarily want to do that sort of stuff. So it's very different from there.
It's like one of those industries as well where it's also about the people that you meet rather than,
Yes.
generally you come across somebody, don't you, that you feel you gel with because as you say, it's a service-based role and you have to feel like first and foremost, one thing I say to people all the time is that it doesn't matter how well you take a photo and how well you can use your camera. Obviously, it does matter. To people like you and I, it does of course matter, but to the person that's walking along the street, they don't know.
Yeah.
And if they feel like there's something about you as a person that they think, wow, what a lovely person, or what a light, or what a whatever, and that's obviously positive, then
Yeah.
they're gonna, meet you and think, actually, I would love to do something like that with somebody like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
Yeah, it's such a niche thing. It's not like a trade, for example, where you're like, well, I really need someone to be a plug socket
Yeah.
in the wall, you know. I don't really care who does it. I just need it to work and be safe. Different, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, I think I work with a lot of people who are great with cameras and they're very much technical forward. They're like, I know how to use this camera, I know what this lens does and everything. But I mean, I work with some amazing photographers and like my specialty is kids and stuff. And they would never step foot in front of kids. Like that is just not how they work. And I think with that type of industry, working with kids or families, you really, like I said, you've got to gel with that type of family because at the end of the day, it's not just photos, it's a memory that they've got. They have the memory of the photo shoot. And they'll look back at that photo and go, oh, yeah, that's when I met this lovely photographer and stuff. And then that can obviously lead to more work and they come back and it's this whole thing with it. So I think you've also got to love what you do from there.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it's funny because like doing my old like HR job, if you don't know what HR is, you deal with all of the complaints, all of the moans of a business. You are like the buffer zone for all the, am I allowed to swear? Shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry. All of the shit basically that comes up, all the horrible stuff. I mean, you do the hiring, but you do the firing, you do the performance management, and sometimes that's positive. Often it's not. You know, you help people get promotions and they love you, and then the next minute, you know, you've got to tell someone that they're not actually doing that well, and then they, you know, it's your fault or whatever. Although my job wasn't so much about that because of the learning and development stuff that I did get to do largely more of a fun, like happy, positive stuff. But you do have your fair share of, you know, ridiculous things come up and then you have to raise a grievance and then tell people off or whatever, and there's all of that, and you're dealing with that day in and day out, and it's tough. And so to go from a role like that to one where you're just literally there to like make people happy and do this nice thing, it's yeah, it's a big difference. But I think it teaches you a lot about customer service because you have to deal with all sorts of people and you know, all manner of like challenges and anything, like just anything and everything. Like no 2 days are the same, and I think that's similar even in this job. Even though you are a photographer and that is your job, like the things that people come to you with, it's like real life stuff, right? So then it's never it's no two people are ever the same, even if their situations sound similar on paper or they describe things. Oh yeah, I've got a horse, I'm a horse owner. Yeah, okay. But then the next person that comes along, well, they're also a horse owner because they're my client, but you know, there'll be something that will be different and interesting, and that's your job, is to be able to harness and pinpoint that and, you know, capture that for them, and that's really special. But yeah, it's yeah, massive like customer service element there, definitely being
Yeah.
able to
Have
get people inside and keep them there and resonate with them and follow them through their life, hopefully.
Have you found that moving from a corporate job to this, have you found that there are some elements, like you said, that you can take away? Like, obviously, your previous job was like customer service and you've moved into another customer service role.
Yeah,
Have you
well,
taken anything from that?
yeah, I think, I mean, there's a few sort of things. I mean, yeah, one of the large things is that I just don't really feel, I think the HR from the job that I did before, the HR side of things, it teaches you to problem solve and find solutions. And not only that, but it teaches you to come to like find a problem and just automatically you just start thinking of like, right, how are we going to negate this, you know? Not that I would say I come up with, touch wood, that many sort of complex issues in what I do, but I think it just teaches you to have that growth mindset of like you're looking for the next thing and like, right, okay. You know, I don't know, I think it's just that element of professionalism, because when you are dealing with people in that capacity, you do have to keep your head screwed on and you have to, you know, really think about the now, but you also have to think like 10 steps ahead as well. Being a bit of an anxious person, I'm very good at that anyway, because you're
Yeah.
always thinking, you know, into the
Yeah.
future, oh, what might happen if I do this? You know, there's always a bit of that.
Yeah.
I think it lends itself quite well, because then in this sort of role, it's sort of people just sort of say, oh, you think of everything. I'm like, no, I'm just really anxious actually.
Yeah.
I'm not. Well, I am, but like that's actually, it's, you know, I've been around the block a few times now. Like I know what I'm doing and stuff, so I've got it sort of down to a fine art. But yeah, I think, and like as I say, putting processes in place and stuff like that, and understanding the importance of like keeping like sequencing things, and there's a reason why we do this, and then we do that, and then we do, you know. I think that's sort of come from the HR job as well. But I just think, you know, generally being in the corporate world, as I say, just teaches you to deal with so many characters, and particularly in the construction industry, there were a lot of them. So you can imagine the sorts of people, you know, you meet people from all walks of life, you know, and yeah, it helps. It's character building, and I mean that was one of the reasons why I loved doing that job. But you know, it definitely sets you up for walking into the horse world and meeting all the different people that you meet doing that. You know, and not, as I say, not even just into the horse world, because I now photograph from the construction industry perspective as well. So it doesn't bother me. You know, I can walk onto a site and people are like, you know, if they don't know me already and they don't know my history already, they're a bit like, oh, you know, are you going to be okay? Would you like us to come with you? No, no, it's fine. I can do. I mean, you can come if you want, but I'll be fine. Like, I know what to expect. It's fine. And, you know, while the industry, you know, there are a lot of great people that are trying to move the industry on to make it more progressive and everything, and it is moving on, it's still the construction industry. And, you know, there's always elements that will, you know, remain. And it's character building. That's what I'll say about that. So that's what I've taken to answer your question. So yeah, I think they're probably the main things really. But
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it is important. I always say that everyone, even if you want to do photography or not, should work in retail or some other job at some point, because you get so many skills from it, from there. But how do you feel? Because obviously, I know we were speaking about moving from, you know, what is essentially a stable job. I mean, I know not everything's stable these days, but moving from something that you get a paycheck every month or week or whatever, moving to something that's very much you have your own time and your own boss. How was that, you know, that leap financially for you?
I mean, obviously the first few months I had a little bit of a financial buffer because I had, you know, taken a voluntary redundancy, so that helped somewhat. But you know, you can't just be like, you know, I've not won the lottery. You've got to start paying yourself at some point, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't go very far when you've got, you know, I mean, got mortgage to pay for and bills to pay and everything else. So, and none of that can go on hold just because you fancy, well, I fancy being a photographer and messing around with my camera. You know, no one's going to wait for
Yeah.
you. So yeah, it had to start paying, and it did, and it was the best thing ever. The first time I was able to properly pay myself a full month's wage and not subsidized from anywhere or from anything else. That was really great. But obviously, it took a little while to kind of get going. But that was expected because I had a lot to sort of put in place. Although I've been doing this and running my business in the same model before changing my job, like, you know, leaving my job, there were still things that needed adapting, of course, because I'm going from being part-time, or just sort of, I'm going to say part-time, but it was really only as and when I felt like it. You know, if I had time one month and my corporate job wasn't, you know, taking me to different places, and I wasn't super busy with, you know, my own life and being away or horses or whatever, and my own personal life, I'd pick a bit more up. And then other times, you know, because it wasn't my main job and my main source of income, I didn't need to be like obtaining, well, I need at least 2 shoots a month and they need to be like this and it needs to be this. I didn't have that. So while it was smart in the sort of in the sense where I ran it in the right model, but it was as and when, and then I made the change to full time. And so I continued with the same, like there were no sort of grand changes around the way I did things. It was all very consistent. But it obviously had to really like jump up a few levels in order to be delivering in the way I needed it to be and paying me and stuff. But yeah, like obviously it's a big consideration. And I think a lot of people say to me now, oh, Holly, I'd love to do something like that. Not necessarily photography, but like in clients I meet, they're in jobs that they maybe aren't as happy in, and think, oh, I'd love to work for myself. And I don't know, you know, it's just the financial, and it is hard, and you do sacrifice. And I noticed definitely that I was having to, you know, say to people, no, sorry, I can't do that, because either, no, I can't come because I'm actually working, and I'm in the position at the moment to not be choosy. I just need to work with what comes until I'm a little bit more settled, and then I can be a bit more picky, and, you know, or it was, you can't afford to just be off willy-nilly doing this, that, and the other, because you're having to really tighten the purse strings for a little while, and like, there is a transition period, and no matter how much you prepare for it, there's always an element of like, you've got to keep a close eye on the finances and, all of that when you've got, a life to pay for and stuff. And like, we live in London or just outside of London. Life's expensive anywhere you live, isn't it? Like, let alone closer to the capital and stuff. So it's just the way it goes. But we choose to do that. So you just find a way to make it work. You have to, don't you? And I think you probably feel the same, Lucy. Like, when you start working for yourself, there's just this something that takes, like, it's like some sort of survival instinct, I think, that just takes over. And suddenly you're like, right, well, this is what I'm doing now, and we just have to find a way to make it work. And you do, don't you? I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe that's the point, isn't it? Some people don't, and then they go back to something else. Others don't, and it separates the two camps.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think when I had to make that jump from, retail to doing this full time is like, firstly, obviously, I think everyone hits that point of like, well, not everyone, but I think people hit that point of like, I don't really enjoy this anymore. I want to do something I enjoy. So they hit that curve of, yeah, I'm going to go do this. It's going to be fun. And then they hit that peak and go, I can't afford this anymore. I can't afford this. I can't go out. I'm not getting the clients that I want to get. Like, the work's not coming in that I need to get. And I think, like you said, people either split off and go, actually, this isn't for me. Way too hard. I'm going to go off and do it. And then people who push back and go, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It's hard. And I think everyone who's run their own photography business knows that there are some good days and bad days. Like, I know particularly that November is the busiest time for me because it's Christmas time, and I thrive for that, and I go, yeah, I'm going to put all my work in. But I also know that when it comes after Christmas, January and February are my quiet times. So obviously everyone's spent for Christmas. So it's you know that you get peaks and troughs from it, and that's obviously, it comes with experience and comes with time and work and stuff. But it is, finding that time to, I mean, I'm quite lucky. I have friends and family that totally understand what I do. They go, yeah, she's working. This is when she's busy. I have a lot of friends that also are freelance jobs, not necessarily creative jobs, but they work for freelance for themselves. So they totally understand that when you get the work, you get the work. And I think when I started, there were that point where I was like I will just take any job there is, and it led to burnout sometimes, because you just think, I'm going to work until I don't have work because that'll make me feel better. But then also, you're not spending time for yourself, and then you're not seeing friends and family because you're also working. Have you dealt with burnout from that?
I've definitely dealt with burnout, but probably not due to this, like, not since, definitely not since coming away from full-time employment and stuff. And that is a place in my life I am keen to never repeat, because I say I think it's burnout. I think it was burnout. I don't really know, to be honest. It was just a horrible time, and it's bad because whenever I talk about it to anybody, I always caveat and say it was around lockdown. And I know
Yeah.
everyone terrible. And everyone that feels that says the same thing, probably, because it's almost like you feel bad saying it because other people were feeling it as well. But the
Yeah.
reality was, it was horrible. And I remember I had, like, I don't really know how long it was, because I don't remember how long that sort of period of my time of my life was. Could have been weeks, could have been months. I don't really know, because it all kind of merged into one, where we'd just moved back into where we live now. And we'd had a bit of work going on in the house, and we had to move out. And obviously it coincided with lockdown as well. And we moved back, and I was working from home in my corporate job all the time. And we didn't have a dog, my emotional support dog. And I'm joking. But yeah, she definitely serves purpose. But yeah, I was just here all day, every day. My partner was out at work, and work was really tough because we were going through some big changes at the time. And I was so unhappy, so miserable. And I don't really remember how long that period of time lasted, because it was so dark, and yeah, very, very difficult to kind of yeah, I just didn't know what to do. I just got to a point where I just didn't know what to do. And yeah, really awful. And I'm glad that do you know what? At the time, actually, I was doing photography part-time, but I remember specifically this time that this really I really noticed that this is scaring me now. Like, I need to do something about this and get a handle on this feeling, depression, burnout, whatever that was. It was the January, and I'll always remember it was the 4th of January that was like the rock bottom. I don't know what changed. And then it seemed to be for those sort of maybe few weeks, maybe into February. I literally couldn't tell you, Lucy, how long. It just feels like it could have been 2 days. It wasn't. It was a long time, but it could have been 2 days, could have been 2 months, don't know. But that time was really bad. And I remember feeling, although it was a quiet time for photography anyway, like the few bits that I did have come up, I remember feeling so sick at the thought of picking up a camera that I just had to put my camera bag and my camera bag into a spare room and shut the door, because the thought of having to open that door and pick that bag up made me feel physically sick. And it wasn't the photography that was doing that. It was just all of the circumstances around everything that were doing that. And yeah, it took a long time to come back from that and to, fight the fear, if you like, of, and not have to feel like that anymore, because it just felt like everything was too much all the time. And it's exhausting. It's horrible. And, when people talk now and they say, oh, burnout, I'm like, oh man, I know that feeling. And that is no joke. But yeah, had to make a bit of a change and got through it, and here I am on the other side. So it does get there, but sometimes you do. I think sometimes people think they need to make like massive radical changes in the moment in order to stop. And I can't speak for everybody, because everybody's situation and feelings are different, and it depends what landed you there in the first place, I suppose. But for me, I didn't have to make any radical changes as such, but I did really need to take stock of a lot of things that were kind of going on in my life at the time, about what really made me happy, and the things that I could control, the things that I couldn't. Yeah. And a lot of it, I think, probably was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, I would say, was probably just the loneliness element of, lockdown, which I'm sure many people would, appreciate, resonate with. But yeah, so thankfully I haven't had that now since I've gone full time in the last 2 years. Never say never. I hope I don't, but I feel like I know so much more about myself and about my own brain now, because I've also done a lot of counselling since then. And it was like the best thing I ever did. I know people probably have very mixed feelings about counselling and therapy and stuff like that, but I didn't start my counselling when all that happened, funnily enough, because for one reason or another, it just didn't quite happen. Only within the last couple of years. And yeah, it's been like the best thing I've ever done. I'm so glad I started when I started, even though at the time I was like, God, this is overdue. I should have come before I did. I'm glad that it happened the way it did. And yeah, I speak to a lot of friends who have tried counselling. They're like, oh, it's not for me. I couldn't get it to work for me. And for whatever reason that is, maybe not the right counsellor, maybe not the right type of counselling, maybe they just weren't in the right headspace to receive that experience at the time. I don't know. All I know is that I'm glad that I stuck with it and found who I found. My lady was amazing. Her name was Emma. She's like, I talk about her to my friends like she's some sort of superhero. I'm like, I was telling Emma, oh, she's great. Yeah. So if anyone, especially, I think, especially when you're self-employed, sorry, and working by yourself in a job such as this one that can be very relying only on yourself, and you only work with yourself really most of the time. Although you have clients, they're your clients, they're not your colleagues. The relationship and the dynamic is completely different. And, the conversations that then happen as a result between you and that person, really, as much as I'm a very open person and I will talk really deeply to a lot of people, I don't really do small talk. I like a good old chit chat with people about life and that. There's only so much that you're going to talk to them about, and your relationship will only go so far because they are your client. But yeah, I think having a counsellor was like one of the most beneficial things for me on this journey. Really, I don't think I could have quite, made such a good go of it if I didn't have that opportunity to create that like brain space for myself. But yeah, as I say, I've not sort of had that burnout since then, but it's because I learned my lesson back then, and that's something I've been keen to kind of not do and repeat. So it is hard, but you said about you have friends and family that understand and stuff, and on the whole, I think they do get it now. But I think for a long time, people were a bit like, not all of them. Like my family have always been great, and my partner and stuff, but a few friends that maybe were a little bit more on the outskirts, they're a bit more sort of like, but we're doing this thing at the weekend, and I'm like, yeah, that's prime time for me. Sorry, like
Yeah.
they maybe don't understand why you're having to choose and why I guess the choice isn't them. Maybe I don't know. Like no one ever said
Yeah.
that to me, but that was sometimes maybe it was just my own guilt talking. I don't know, but like sometimes you do feel a bit bad, but you know that it's for the greater good, and it's that thing that you just have to keep that end goal in mind, and then eventually when that comes you will be able to be more picky about things and organize your life as and when. Not that I'm a advocate of just taking any old work. I was still choosy about the work, but like sometimes you can't be choosy about when it comes, and you just have to kind of go with it in that sense, because you need to earn a living. um but yeah, so yeah, burnout definitely something I'm familiar with, but thankfully
Yeah.
not so much in the more recent years, like before that.
No, I've dealt with that burnout definitely, and I think, like I said, I'm lucky. I've got friends and family that agree with me. But I think when you were talking about guilt, like I totally have that guilt that's like, right, I'm gonna miss like a birthday party, or maybe I've not met up with a friend for so long, and like you do feel that guilt because you think, well, I also want to, live my life, and that's what work shouldn't consume you in that sense. But I think when you deal with like freelance or just working for yourself, you have to take the opportunity you have. And with that, I mean, thankfully, people know that if they need me, they have to book in advance with me now. They know that, like, all right, they go, oh, we've got this like birthday party coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm like, yep, got it. I'll put that in my diary. With it, I mean, I've dealt with very low periods in my time, and I think um, when you have to deal, for me personally, it was more financial stress. So when I went through the lows, now obviously I know to prepare for those times around January, February time. But when I started out, it was very much like I didn't know that I wasn't going to get any work then. So the times where I literally couldn't pay my bills, I was at the last straw. I was like, what do I do now? And I remember having to get another part-time job when so I had a job, retail job, obviously, and then quit that to do photography full time, and then had to get another real retail job on top of the photography because I just obviously couldn't pay my bills. I think when I had that come up, I felt very like depressed in a way because I felt I've built up all this work and to do photography full time, and now I have to go and do a job again that I don't necessarily enjoy doing, and I have to go do that and do.
Oh, this wasn't part of the plan, and it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly. And it felt defeating because you felt I've built up this work and now I have to go and
fucking, this is terrible. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
I literally I was like, I have to go and do this work because I can't afford to pay my bills. And I think at that point it was obviously devastating, but I think that also was my motivation to go, I've been there before, I can do it again. I can do this full time because I've done it full time before. And it was more of a motivation from it. But that low, I think, definitely kicked in. I was like, and I think I feel the same with you. It's like it could have been a couple of days, it could have been a whole month that I felt that, but it was a very hard time for me. And I agree, like I couldn't even pick up a camera. I was like, you know what? I don't even want to do work. I don't want to
I
take
feel a bit.
photos.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to take photos. I don't want to do this work because, essentially not having the work made me depressed to do the work.
yeah.
And I think, having that time, I like to keep myself busy. I'm that type of person that I can't sit down for 5 minutes. Like I have to be doing something. So when I just had to, when I had that period, I was like, you know what? I don't even, I generally thought I'm going to pack in this business. This isn't for me. I don't want to do this anymore. And like I said, the sight of a camera was like, I don't want to do it. And I didn't feel creative anymore. And I think when I was in that rut of it, it was like, right, I have to do all the admin work, I have to do all the marketing side, I have to do, finance, and I have to look at my, finances coming in. That was so depressing. And at that point, I think obviously people don't understand when you get into a business, you've got to do all these other sides as well. It's not just taking the photos.
Thing I think quite often, like people want to do a thing, but they don't want to have a business. Um,
Yes.
and I have to say, I don't. I think that's probably why I, for so long, didn't like do this as a business. I was just like, oh, it's just something I can do. Like, it's a skill that I have and it makes people really happy, but I don't want to be dealing with all that. I don't have to be worrying about tax and, all that scary official stuff. Like, I don't need to earn from this. Like, that was like years ago when I first started a couple of the local events and stuff. And then people were like, no, do you know you should really like charge for this? Because by the way, I wasn't doing that thing where I was shooting for free over someone's shoulder who was there working. I did not do that. It was literally a local little yard show. That was how it started, just in case anyone's, you know,
Yeah.
very frowned upon in what I do. And so anyway, and they were like the local people, they were all people I kind of got to know and stuff over a few seasons of doing the same thing. And they were like, Holly, come on, like let's give you some money because we feel terrible. You are giving up your Saturdays or your Sundays to be here. And these are good as quality as like if we were going to go to any other competition, like you should really let her like, and that was really nice. But then I was like, this guy feels like he's going into the realms of like, which it wasn't enough money to worry about, but it's not the point, is that I was like, no, if I'm going to do it, I'm doing it properly. And yeah, it kind of just gently went from there really over the years, and that was that. But yeah, for so long, I think that was the thing, is that I knew that in terms of doing the photography, it was never just photography. It was always going to be the side of running a business. And I think people quite often look past that when they want to do something creative. They think, oh, I'll just do this for people and then they'll just pay me and then that's great and I'll be really happy. But actually, you need to be willing to accept that you're going to have a lot of like running the business element side of things. And if it's something you don't want to learn, then you're going to have to pay for someone else to do it, which is great because they're an expert, but then it still costs you. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be very mindful of that. Because otherwise, without that, you haven't got business. You've just got a very expensive hobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Horses, I already do that. So, so we don't need any more of that in our lives, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I do think it's the same thing, isn't it? People, they want to, they want to do a thing that makes people happy, but then they have to decide whether or not they actually want the business element that comes with it. And I think that's a very separate conversation for people, and one that maybe people don't always realize that that's what they're walking into. I don't know, I
Yeah.
probably didn't. Like I did, but I did know, but also I kind of, you just don't realize how much it takes until you're in it and doing it.
Yeah, I think for me, it was very different because I was quite naive going into it. I was, 18, and I thought, you know what, this is what I want to do. I'm happy to do it. I mean, I was quite lucky that I knew this was something that I wanted to do. I think a lot of people, even my age or later down life, still don't know what they want to do, and that's okay if you don't know what you want to do. Um, with it, I was just quite lucky that I knew this is what I enjoyed and that's what I wanted to do. But I think I was more obviously creative in that sense, that I just thought, yeah, I'm just going to jump into it, going to take some photos of people, and it's all going to be okay. And then you sort of realize, like, oh shit, I've actually got to do everything else surrounding that with it. I mean, I knew that I wanted to work with people, so that was quite easy for me. Obviously you said that you're into horses and stuff. Did you jump into it and go, yeah, I know I want to work with horses and stuff?
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Like I always say, and it's not a hard and fast rule, but for me, I always say to people that I don't believe I could do this job as well as I do if I wasn't horsey myself,
Mm.
because it's bonkers. Like
Yeah.
horses, you don't understand why we put ourselves through the often torturous times that being a horse owner, it like can be. Why would anyone like why would they're accident prone creatures that look for creative ways to hurt themselves, spend your money, make you have sleepless nights. Doesn't matter how much help you have, even if you're lucky enough to have like people that work for you to like groom for you, to do all the like the actual heavy lifting in element of all the care and stuff, they're still hard work, and there's always something. They always need something. It's not like just having a cat or a dog. It's different.
Yeah.
It's lifestyle, and even if you want to, go away, like it's just, yeah, it's a whole lifestyle. And if you're not in it and you've not experienced that, you can learn and you can learn to understand it. But I just think that's what I get it. Like I'm in it with the people that I work for, and I get it. And so, yeah, that was always going to be the plan. If I was going to pick up a camera, it was because of this. There was nothing else. And even now, some people, it makes me laugh. I meet people and they're like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I'm like, it's like an out of body experience when I say, "Oh, I'm a photographer," and they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Oh, no,
Yeah.
I'm impressed with myself." I just said that out loud. I almost don't believe it either, but I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, so you work for yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "So would you do like weddings?" I'm like, "No,
Oh
that's
my God, yes.
I
I
couldn't
get that.
experience." And they're like, "Well," this is what makes me laugh. They say, "Well, you should really think about doing the weddings because that's where the money is." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Oh, have you done it then? Do you know that?"
It is so annoying. Like I get so many people come up to me and go, "Oh, so what do you do for a job?" And I go, "Oh, I do photography." And they go, "Oh, first thing without any question is, what do you do? Any types?" And just go, "Do you do weddings?" I mean, I'm vowed that I would probably never do a wedding again. Like if I know
Yeah.
the people, absolutely I'll go do it. But it's not for me. It's not that environment. I know some amazing wedding photographers
Oh
and they're
my God.
great at it, but
I admire when I say I could never, because
yeah.
the most I think I could stretch to would be maybe like I could support someone in second shoot, because I think I would quite enjoy that, just the creeping around with the little detail shots, like leave me to just do my thing and
Mm.
just capture the little moments of your day that you will not see because you're busy doing what you're supposed to be doing on your day. I would love that. But yeah, in terms of orchestrating the whole thing and actually learning all of the nuances and the tiny things about some of these huge weddings and how intricate the details are and the timings have to be so specific. I just That's just not for me.
Yeah.
Just not for me. So I don't, I mean, I'll never say never, but I can't see that I will ever purposely walk straight through that door. I don't think. Because I admire people that say that's what I do. I'm like, wow, now
Yeah.
that's a hard job. Do you know what I mean? But I guess everything's hard until you do it, I suppose. Like that's the whole thing, is
Yeah.
I think that's part of the whole thing of being a creative person, is that because it doesn't come it's not it comes quite easily to us to do what we do. Like it's not an easy job, but it comes quite easily to us to do the creating and to do the things that we do, which is why we've ended up picking it as a job. You almost feel a bit like, I feel a bit bad for charging people, or oh, I feel a bit I don't know, you just
Yeah.
you have to be in the mindset, don't you? And yeah, with like weddings and stuff, I suppose I look at that and go, wow, that must be really hard. You deserve every penny you get. But then I'm sure there's plenty of wedding photographers that look at why do a thing, or why would you want to do that? That sounds so
Yeah.
difficult. With a wedding, I know what's going to happen because there's a structure and there's a schedule and it's the same and it's people each time. So I suppose
Yeah.
it's roundabouts, isn't it? But yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when people say that to us? And oh, weddings? No,
Yeah.
there's other types of photography, and that's what I do.
Yeah, it's like I see people that come to me and they go, "Oh my God, I could never work with kids. Like, how do you work with babies and children?" It's like I could never do that screaming and running around. I mean, for me, I enjoy working with kids. I feel like I'm like a kid myself anyway, so it works with that. But like I would see weddings and be like, how do you do that? But it's even like I know someone like that works with celebrities. He does portraits, but he works with celebrities and it's like I could never like surround myself in that environment.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It is funny. But yeah, I just think people hear photographer and they think I can mean anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I tell
Yeah.
people, well, mainly horses and construction, they're like, oh, how did you get to that? And then
So
I'm like, oh,
different.
I used to work in construction and then I did this and I've always ridden horses. So yeah, you kind
Yeah.
of give the like the lowdown, and actually it's not that complicated. But yeah, it's a bit of a niche thing. But I think that's
Yeah.
we like a niche.
Yeah,
Niche is
it
good.
is. Niches are good, and I think you've got to find your niche as well. Like I did product photography and like as work experience, and I went, that is fuck no, that is not for me, you know.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was like, that is not for me. But you've got to find what you enjoy and stuff. And obviously, you know, working with horses is what you enjoy doing. And obviously, you've got a background in construction as well. So that always helps with
They're
it.
like the two things that I know the most about. So why would you not? Why would I not? You know, I can do it.
Yeah.
It's natural. It's like breathing. I understand what's going on around me. I don't feel worried. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
What
but
what sort of stuff do you do with construction? Is it working with
so
businesses in that sense?
yeah, it's working on behalf of businesses. So, for example, one really regular client of mine, they're great. They're called Forest Joinery, and they basically do commercial fit outs. So, they might send so they'll do all the joinery, so all the carpentry work and stuff, package for a job. And then they'll send me along at the end because obviously the good thing about joinery is that it's generally the stuff that makes everything look really beautiful and finished.
Mm.
So, you know, you like no one really needs photographs of a first fix electrical fit out because it's just cables hanging out of walls in a dusty building that
Yeah.
you could decipher. Whereas with the joinery packages, you know, it's beautiful because they could be you could so for example, one job that I walk into might be in London in one of the big buildings around the city, and the whole floor might be like shed working space, you know, like a flexible working office where people like you and I could just go along for the day
Yeah.
and you know, hire an office for the day, meeting rooms, kitchens, and maybe they've fitted out like the reception desk and the breakout space and all of this beautiful bench seating and tables and a kitchen and you know desks and planters, really lovely high end office space, and then I'll go in at the end and photograph everything once it's all, you know, the lighting, the plants are in, everything's, you know, upholstered and finished, and it just looks really good. Like it's dressed properly by the interior design. It looks really great, and I love doing that because it's just like somebody's vision has come to life, you know, especially then when you can look at the CGIs and say, okay, this is how it was supposed to look and this is how it looked, you know, and that's your photo there for somebody and they're like, oh my God, look what we did, you know, and they're looking at my work, but they're looking at their work in my work, if that makes sense. And that
Yeah.
makes me so happy because when they're like, look at what I did, I'm like, oh, good. My photo has made, no, my photo has helped you to feel like that. It's been the vehicle for you to look at that and go, wow, I'm going to remember this forever. I'm so proud of what I created, you know. So yeah, so they'll Forest Joinery will send me out to their commercial fit out. So yeah, they tend to do, you know, they might do like a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a coffee shop for them, you know, in London, and that was really cool. And I get to see parts of London that I wouldn't normally now that I don't. I mean, I've not really worked in London for a long time now, but you know, I get to go to parts of London that I wouldn't normally see. So I just hop on the train and head into town, and it's not far from me because of where I live. So yeah, it's great. And then other times I'll work for them and I'll like go along and photograph all of their staff working in their workshops, producing all the stuff before it heads to London to be fitted. So it's a really varied kind of thing. So there's a bit of kind of like branding, content photography there. But yeah, also it's the finished end result, if you like, and then they use that for their marketing, their websites, pitches in the future, you know, if they're trying to put a bid in to get more work. It's great. I love it. I love
Yeah.
doing it. So that sort of thing, you know, I have, and it helps me through, like, you know, you just saying about January, February being quieter months after Christmas. Generally, that is kind of, it's been, hopefully it continues to be a theme, but that tends to sort of see me through those months as well, which is really good. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my other side to my business. But as I say, it's an environment I'm comfortable in. It doesn't bother me. Like, yes, it's very early starts. Generally, I'm in town for like 7 a.m. You know,
Mm.
so it's but it's fine. It suits me. A couple of hours work, and then you know, come home, edit, turn it all around quickly for them, and they're happy. So yeah.
Yeah. That must be really rewarding though, because you were saying obviously turning their vision to it. And I think whatever you do, I mean, in photography, it's always rewarding, but you know, seeing those happy faces essentially, I mean,
Mm.
it's worth more than money sometimes with it. It must be so rewarding to do.
Yeah, because you know that you know they've created something, and it's you know these are they're important, you know, projects for this business. You know, you've got to get it right. They have to get it right, and they put themselves under a lot of pressure to get it right, and they're working to very very tight deadlines. So I get parachuted in at the end when they're like ta-da, and I'm like, ta-da! And then they're like, wow, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you're happy. That's a really good,
Yeah.
it's a good feeling. It is a good feeling. But it's their work that they're happy with. Not what, well, I mean, I
Yeah.
just so happen that I captured it for them. But to be able to do that, do their work justice in their eyes is, it's a bit like being asked to photograph another, being asked to photograph another photographer. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Because you know that they know what they're looking at. And the same
Yeah.
thing when you're photographing someone else's work for them, they are their own biggest critics of their own work.
Yeah.
So to capture their work for them
Yeah.
is something I take very seriously and I enjoy it. So yeah.
Good. Yeah. How did you get into that space? Obviously, I know you've been in construction before, but how did you start marketing
Um,
yourself to those businesses?
it was an accident. Someone asked me to do it. It's like a lot of things, isn't it? Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of got asked to try. And I've done a little bit of that sort of thing before, but I got asked to just have a go. Um, and I thought, yeah, I could probably do that. Give it a go. How hard could it be?
Yeah.
Turns out actually quite hard. um, famous passwords. But whatever you learn, don't you? So I think that's, like we were saying earlier, it's this growth mindset, isn't it? Of, you just got to keep trying and finding new ways to earn a living. But anyway, yeah, I just gave it a go one day and decided I really liked it. But I got asked to try, and I've got another friend as well who he had. I don't. I don't really know exactly how to explain his job without getting really technical about it. But basically, he has access to businesses that own some very big buildings in London. And every now and again, they might need to have photography because they might need to do official documents and bid writing and all this stuff where they need images, up-to-date images of their buildings. So he basically gave me some addresses one day and said, just try. It was all paid, and I was like, oh, I really don't know. But because it was a friend and it was just between, he works for himself, I work for myself, and he was like, just try,
Yeah.
just see how you get on, because I really think you could do it. And I was like, oh, I really don't know. And he was like, no, come on, you can do it. He gave me the addresses, and I was like, okay, map them out in London. And off I went with my backpack, with my, tripod and lenses
Yeah.
and around London and was photographing these great big buildings. And that wasn't without complications because I turned up on this particular day to this one building, and the whole side of this enormous, it was like a block on a main road in London. And I found it covered in scaffold. It was like, can't Photoshop that out.
Yeah.
It was too much. It was covered in scaffold. So I rang him and said, did you know that this building is due to be covered in scaffold? He was like, well, no, obviously not. I wouldn't have sent you. I was like, well, it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's coming down anytime soon. And he was like, oh, no. And then it just so happened because of the construction contact, in small industry, big industry, small industry. I happened to know someone that had moved on from the company that we'd both worked for previously, and he was now working for this company that were responsible for all the scaffold on this giant building. So I spoke to him and said, I hear that you're part of this building. He said, oh, yeah, that's my site, actually. And I said, right, well, I'm trying to photograph the building and you put scaffold all over it. When's it coming down? And he was like, oh, sorry, not until next November. I was like, oh, okay, I'll come back next November then. So,
Yeah.
it's going to be a long-term project, but it's just funny how these things come around. But yeah, I got on well with that and enjoyed doing it. So it's something that I can offer people now if it comes up. I mean, that particular type of job of photographing the outsides of buildings and the actual whole building in London, that's a little bit more niche. But someone will need it at some point, and it's just something that I can do if people require it. But yeah, and sometimes I do like little restaurants and stuff, restaurant fit outs. I've got another company who do a bit of just some chain restaurant fit outs. So yeah, it's not the most glamorous, but it doesn't need to be because it pays the bills and it's a good job and it needs doing. And they always look smart when they've just been freshly completed. Yeah, and as I say, it helps the businesses that ask me to do it because they need the images as much as I need them to book me to have a job. So
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of it is about networking, like you were saying. I think photography can be quite a lonely place, especially if you work for yourself and stuff. And I think knowing people is massive. I mean, I know people have come to me and be like, oh, like I've got some work, I can't do it. Would you, want to do it? And I think that helps so much more. How did you how do you sort of network when it comes to other photographers? Is it just sort of knowing a friend of a friend, really?
Sort of. So I have a couple of really good photographer friends who, well, people that I consider to be really good photographer friends. And I know that if there's ever anything that I am stressed about, worried about, curious about, or even to be honest, if I'm really happy about something, I know that I can go to these people and go, guess what? Or help, or what the hell? Like they are my go-to. I've got a couple of friends like that, but Lucy being one of them. I know you've spoken to Lucy. I know you know her well. And yeah, my other one is Imogen, and she's great. She lives up in Derbyshire, and I talk to her all the time, and we send each other like 12-minute voice notes, and we're like, well, I say we're like each other's support system. She's definitely my support system. I think she'd agree, and we like and stuff. And she's great. She does the same job as literally what I do. And I don't. I'm not. I'm one of these where I'm like, I like to make friends with people, even if they do the same job as me. I'm not interested in, oh, well, they do the same thing as me, so we can't be friends. Automatically, you're, an enemy. I'm not that
Yeah.
person. I'm bothered. I'm far too lazy for all of that. I'd rather just be friends with people. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going out there befriending everybody and oh yeah, I'm friends with everyone. I'm not that person either because I definitely haven't got the energy for that. But I'm not interested in all of the kind of, I think it can get a bit political sometimes and, picking the bones of things. But yeah, as I say, my friend Imogen, she does exactly the same job that I do, and she's based up in Derbyshire. And there have been times where she's, come down to stay with me, and we've gone off to some like, like CPD exhibition type things in London, photography things, and we'll go together for the day or whatever. And she's come down to stay with me when she's had shoots in the south and stuff like that. So yeah, she's been a fantastic support, and she definitely was somebody that I phoned in the depths of winter on the first sort of few months of me going full time when I had my wobble going, have I done the right thing? Well, I don't know what I'm doing. Ah. She was like, right, enough of this, because she used to work in like a job like a paid job as well, and then went full time, and she's a couple of years sort of ahead of me, if you like. She did it a few years before me, so she's been, I feel like if anyone's been there, Imogen's been there. She gets it. Do you know what I mean? And it's funny.
Yeah.
And so like she'll be like, right, what? No, come on, Holly, what are you talking about? You know what you're doing. Why are you telling me? Come on then, what do you need to do? We'll get on and do it then. She's fantastic for like if I need a kick, I'll Imogen will kick me. It's fine. It's great.
Yeah.
But then everyone needs it, don't they? Because then there'll be times where she'll come to me and go, oh, this, and we're like, oh, and we chat about stuff, and it's just good to have someone that gets it. Because as you say, as good as it is that you have friends and family that are accepting and they understand, they haven't got the same like lived experience. So there's only so much that they can say and suggestions that they can make. So yeah, having somebody like that is so important because it really helps to have that kind of little friendship community, helping each other out at the end of the day. Like because I one thing I was really worried about actually, and I actually said this to a friend of mine who's a self-employed dog trainer. I said to her, I'm concerned that I'm going to get lonely because I'm, as much as I do like to keep myself to myself and like I'm quite happy working on my own. I'm a very sociable person and I've been used to having teams around me. And I was really concerned that coming from the business that I came from, going into doing this was going to be very solitary and I was going to really miss like the camaraderie of colleagues. Because there was a real sense of that and a real sense of like community and belonging. And I was like, how am I going to create that when it's just myself? And you do, if like you create that sense of like purpose, but it's just different. But I was really worried about that before. And, as I say, like Lucy Newson laughed because she was like, ah, you don't need those guys. She was a bit like that,
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're sad, but you don't need those. Come on, you don't need those guys. And I was like, no, but I think I do. I was scared.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just do. I'm here, still here 2 years later. And my dog trainer friend said to me, she was like, I'm probably not the best person to ask you because I'm quite a solitary person and I'm quite introverted, so I quite enjoy working by myself. And I was like, And then immediately I was then panicking. So I was like, is this not going to work? Because I'm not a massive introvert. Like I'm quite extra most of the time. And I was like, oh no, is this a sign that it's not going to work because I'm not an introvert and working by yourself? It's not a sign. No, I
Yeah.
don't think so. Sometimes it's just a thought. And yeah, so do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
actually fine, but it's just different. It's just different. And there are some elements that I do miss, but actually I'm really happy doing this now, and I wouldn't have done it any differently. So yeah.
I love that. That's really nice. Yeah, I think I mean I was quite introverted when I was younger, but I think doing this job's made me quite extroverted, like just meeting people and seeing
Do you
people. So
find it tires you out, Lucy?
say that
Some
again, Sarah.
find it tires you out though sometimes.
Yes, it can do. I think when I have like yesterday, I had a whole day of just like, even just like I was talking to the camera all day and I was like, oh my God, like I have to talk all day. And I was just so tired by the end.
Yeah,
And
so
especially when I
tiring.
work with kids as well, it's like you've got to be on all the time. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I felt it on Monday actually. I had for the first time I had a work experience student who was a client's daughter. Well, the daughter's still a client of mine, but you know what I mean, client's daughter. So I knew them quite well already. And she said, "Would you do me a favor? Would you have my daughter for one day for work experience like next July?" And I was like, "Yeah." I'm
Yeah.
a bit worried about that. I don't know what I'm going to like do, but yeah, cool. Like, bearing in mind my old job was literally like this, like work experience and, grad jobs and stuff. I was like, yeah, great. I can do that. Yeah. And then I had her for the day on Monday and it just gone.
Mm.
So obviously it's been in the planning for a while. And we had a great day. I had so much fun. But oh my God, was I tired on Monday night. I couldn't even keep my eyes open. Like that's how I felt. I was like, I need to
Yeah.
go to bed. So tired because you are, as exactly as you described, Lucy, you're switched on all day and you're having to like
Yeah.
even when we were just like having a bit of lunch and a cup of tea and just a bit of a chat and a bit of a break, you're just still on, from, first thing in the morning until, evening, like full working day. So, yeah, it's tiring. And I feel like that as well after trade stands, even being an extroverted person who loves chatting to people. And I love the idea of like getting to a trade stand and just that, like, hello everyone, like here I am.
Yeah.
This, come and have a look at my little shop that's just popped up in the middle of this field with all of these other shops that popped up in the middle of this field, Like I love it. I love doing it, love chatting to people, but oh my God, is it the most exhausting thing ever? My brain.
No.
And like after like 2 days, I'm like, I don't know how people do the week at like badminton or whatever. I don't know how they do it, 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. Oh my God, 2 days is enough for me. Like I just get so tired and I just feel like I've got no
Yeah.
more, which will shock anyone that knows me well. But after doing trade stands, I feel like I've got no more talk left because I just need to go and sit at home and say no
Yeah.
words.
No, I think that's probably it for today, Holly. I know we could probably just keep chatting
Yeah.
and chatting.
Yeah. No, it's been lovely. Thank you, Lucy. I really
No,
appreciate that.
I think it's a conversation that needs to be had as well. I think a lot of people come to me. I mean, like I said, I can't personally relate to, switching jobs from corporate into something creative. So I think this will definitely help people out a lot with it. And I think people resonate with it and see your story and go, it is possible, people
Not
can do
easy, but
that.
it is possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it
no.
can be done, and I think that's what's so motivating about it with it. But no, thank you, Holly. I think we've had a really good conversation about it, and I think even stuff with burnout and mental health is, as a creative, it's important to talk about, and it's not spoken about a lot.
And the thing is, I think everyone has their own version of events, don't they? It's just whether they
Yeah,
want to do it. But I think anyone that does any sort of creative role, they do, like anyone you speak to, they're like, oh my God, yeah,
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, where do people find you if they're looking for you, Holly?
Yes. So I'm most active on Instagram. So Holly with two L's and a Y and Outtridge, OU double T. It's always double T, never one T. Outtridge, photography. Yeah, website, same. Facebook, same. Holly Outtridge Photography. That is me. So come find me.
Perfect. I will link all her stuff down below as well if that you are interested in working her. Where are you based? Is it around Essex, did you say?
It's but like Essex, the Hertfordshire border, but I travel everywhere.
Yeah,
I go everywhere for work. So yeah, nowhere is
perfect.
nowhere is safe.
I love it. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. If you're interested in more episodes, please like, comment, and subscribe for more episodes. But thank you so much, Holly, and I'll see you later.